Karpov-Kasparov game. This is the famous Karpov-Kasparov white square symphony game. Okay, and I like this game for a couple reasons. I always like when Karpov beats Kasparov. You gotta like that. But more importantly, Kasparov has an isolated queen pawn, then he doesn't, then he does again. Very suspicious. Okay, and Kasparov played Queen's Gambit declined. And Queen C2 is a move, Queen D2 is a move, Rook C1 is a move, Queen B3 is a move. Rook C1 is the most common, but Queen C2 is the old Capablanca move. So it's got to be good. Knight A6, very suspicious. And C5. And remember what I told you earlier in the lecture, when you see all these pawns here, somebody's going to have an isolated queen pawn. Somebody. Turned out it was black. And there's the isolated pawn. So white could have tried to win a pawn earlier, but white's king is on E1. He doesn't want the position open. He doesn't want the D file open. He wants it closed up. And he wants to work on this pawn, for the next 63 moves or so, approximately. And, well, this is sort of the starting position. And as you can see, Karpov's already doing pretty well because he has a lot of guys blocking the D pawn. And when the D pawn is blocked and it can't move, then we can win it later, much later. And Kasparov wants to use the E4 square, but Karpov's defending that as well. So Karpov was ready for this. Bishop E2. Doesn't want to play bishop D3 and give the bishop away or block his queen and rook. Queen B6. Now, if black plays knight to E4, that's very risky because it loses immediately. Therefore risky. Because I take, threatening your queen, and if you take, what does white do? Yes?
Knight takes D2.
Knight takes. And then white's a piece up with good technique. Okay, so Kasparov doesn't want to play knight e4 eventually, so queen b6. Now maybe I can play knight e4. Castles, knight e4. I didn't even know he played that. But. Okay, so did Karpov take that knight on e4? Anyone? You can guess. No, then I'm going to call this the isolated E-pawn lecture. It's not even isolated. No, that rook on d8, it doesn't want a pawn in front of it. It wants to attack. That isolated pawn is blocking it. Queen c2. Isolated pawn there forever. Takes, takes. So by trading the knights, it's hard for Kasparov to put a knight on e4 or c4 and use his d-pawn effectively. However, Kasparov says, trade, 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 it's a draw. How could the guy beat me? There's no pieces left. And the one piece that he has that's great, I got it pinned and attacked. So I can draw this. Bishop e6. Kasparov's just going to chill out and say, you can't beat me. I'm too solid. I got two bishops. But he's playing Karpov. That was his only mistake. Queen c2, unpinning his knight, controlling f5. Karpov must have seen my game that hadn't happened yet with Chow. Rook c8, queen b1. He doesn't want the queen on d2. He wants the rooks to be on the d file, and he wants his queen to defend not only the b2 pawn, but control f5. I like playing queen b1 and queen pawn openings. Then they can't attack my queen. Rook c7. Kasparov wants to double on the c file. And now knight takes e6. That's why this game is the white square symphony. Now we're going to see white taking over the white squares. Now, when you play knight takes e6, an isolated queen pawn, are you worried black is going to take with the queen or the pawn? Which do you worry about if you're white in this position? Which move scares you a little? Taking with the pawn because the pawn's not isolated anymore. Takes with the queen, you're like, okay, great. Isolated pawn, not defended by the bishop anymore. Now I'm going to go win it. Rook d1, bishop f3. But Karpov's like, wait a minute. If he takes with the pawn, then I can play queen g6, bishop d3, and I can attack the king because there's no white square defense of the king. If he takes with the queen, I'm going to go win this guy. Rook here, bishop here, and there's no bishop to defend it. Well, Kasparov is an active player, so he plays the active move. He got rid of his isolated d-pawn, but he'll get it back. He doesn't want it back. And now, black's king is exposed because he's not defending the white squares. Bishop g4, attack, putting pressure on the pawn. h3, getting loofed. And Karpov just moves around. Beautiful. Doesn't really do very much, but makes sure the pawns can't move. And bishop to g6. And white actually has a very interesting plan here. He wants to give black an isolated pawn again while he's threatening mate on the king side. And e4 is the key move of the game. So obviously, Karpov wants to play queen g6, but Kasparov's like, no, you're not going to do that. And if white trades queens, it's very unlikely he'll win. Opposite color bishops, even material. So now he wants to give an isolated pawn again. And if black plays d4, white can play e5, and then queen e4, and the d pawn is hanging. Terrible. So once again, he gets an isolated pawn. And we're back to square one. And unfortunately, for black, this king's very safe, that king's very suspicious. Now most people, like let's say Alex Marler, for example, he's like, rah, queen h7 mate, or some, I have to win now. Karpov, incredibly patient, moves his pieces around and around until you're dizzy, and then mates you later. And when you get better at chess, like Alex, then you start to get more patient. And Karpov's building up in this position is really ingenious. Bishop b1, doesn't want the queen attacking the bishop. Now, white has more squares for his queen to attack h7, and the bishop isn't getting hit anymore. Queen d2, who thinks white should trade queens? I raised my hand and nobody else did. Okay, good. Queen e5, rook d8, queen f5, and Kasparov says, getting mated is bad, so king g8. Always repeat.
How many moves in a row did white move on the light square?
Every move. Yeah. Okay, always repeat, as Alex Marler knows. Bishop f5. So now, Karpov wants to threaten mate and then play bishop e6 check. Yeah, this isn't so fun for black. Always repeat. And then g3. And this is my favorite part of the game, when Karpov tucks his king away. He plays g3, taking away squares from the dark squared bishop. Bishop can't go here or here. Then he kicks the bishop out. Very mean. h4. That wasn't very nice. And what's the one white piece that hasn't been checkmating black yet? You. The rook on f1. Where would you like your rook? e6? I like what Karpov did better, but you're good. Where else would you like your rook? Put that white rook anywhere you want. h8, would require a bug house game, I think. I don't think the rook can get to h8. Okay, Karpov decided f3 was a good square. Why? Well, it's a good square. But also, it stops black from queening his isolated pawn. If the rook is on the third rank, black doesn't have any counterplay. So, rook d1, rook d3, rook f3. Now white has all his pieces attacking. I don't think black's isolated pawn is very helpful. What is helpful is white has more pawns around his king. And all the pawns are on dark squares for both sides, on the king side. So that means this bishop can't go anywhere, and white's bishop can go everywhere. And the rule of thumb is you want your own pawns on the opposite color of your bishop and the same color of your opponent's. So that way your bishop can move around and your opponents can't. So victory for Karpov here. King e7, very suspicious. Queen h8. Here comes the passed pawn, but Karpov already stopped it. Queen c8, surrounding the king. Rook e3 check would be risky, but rook e4 check is not. Rook e4 check. Queen c4 check. Bishop h7. What's the threat? Why are you laughing? They don't know. Queen g8 mate with advantage. Not only is this pawn isolated, it stops the black bishop from defending, blocking his own bishop. Terrible. What did black do in this position? How did he stop mate? It's Kasparov. He defends pretty well. Yes, he didn't resign. You were thinking resign. Terrible. Man, queen f7, queen c8, that's not defending so well. Rook f7. That's defending better. Yeah. Queen e6, threatening queen e8 mate. Anyone? Queen d7. Now you're defending better. Yeah. How many more moves did it take Karpov to win this game? 70 more?
No.
Oh. Oh, it's, yeah, get pretty close to the end. No, I was just kidding when I said he won. Traded queens and they agreed to a draw. No. No, traded queens and black played d3, d2, and white resigned. No. Also not good. Queen e5, threatening queen b8 check with advantage. Yeah, and we see that white's king was safe, black's d-pawn did nothing, and when Karpov wanted to play rook e3 and d4 was played, he just played rook e4. He got his rook active, his queen and bishop, and black's d-pawn never was, there was no danger for white that it was queening because he blocked it, and by trading pieces and getting opposite colored bishops, unlike some other grandmasters give you the wrong information, they don't work here, opposite colored bishops, when there's heavy pieces on the board, means your chances of evading attack are more successful. If the queens are off the board, it's almost certainly a draw because it's hard to win. With queens on the board, whoever has the initiative, whoever's attacking the king, they're more likely to be successful with opposite bishops. This bishop has a tough time stopping that bishop. Very tough. And who has the initiative? Thanks for asking. Usually, the person who has more pawns around their king has a safer king. So, white's king is very safe with the 3 pawns. Black is much less safe with 2. This pawn wasn't helpful at all. It didn't queen, it didn't threaten the queen, and it didn't defend black's king. And when you look at games like this, it's surprising that Kasparov is considered the greatest player ever. It seems like white should be the greatest player ever. White really positionally understood the game and just totally dominated. Although if I showed you games Kasparov beat Karpov, you would think the opposite. But Karpov was really good, and still is, at strategical chess and getting really small advantages. And he did things really great this game, like g3, king g2, and h4, making his king perfectly safe, avoiding back rank checks, avoiding tactics on f2, and taking all these squares away from the black bishop. So he ended up here blocked by all his pawns. Terrible. And that's, well, I think one of Karpov's greatest victories against Kasparov, because normally when you're playing a tactician, they're always getting counterplay somehow that you overlooked. You know what I'm saying? But somehow Karpov sees the counterplay, snuffs it all out, and then black looks bad. I think he resigned here. If you don't want to resign, you can try to make a move for black. Good luck.